Welcome to Fire Team Chat, IGN's Destiny show. I am Jose Otero. I'm here once again with Destin Laguirre.
Hey, Jose.
How is everything going, Destin?
It's going quite well. Hello, listeners.
Hello,
I hope
listeners.
it's going well for you.
Yes, thank you for tuning in once again. And I am sad to report, Destin, that I have not been playing Destiny, but I have a lot to say on this week's topic.
Good, good.
So I'm moving this week to a new address, and so everything is packed up, including that PS4 and Xbox
Bloodborne
One.
came out. No,
And Bloodborne came out, and
Yeah.
I still can't play that either, so I'm very sad inside.
I can't play till next week.
Okay,
Very
you're
excited.
going
But
on
this is a Destiny podcast.
So
I shouldn't.
let's focus on those. Yeah, that's fine. So why don't you start with some shout-outs, dude? What's going on?
So last week I gave a shout out to the Fire Team Chat Facebook page, and it blew up.
Really?
A bunch of people got the Flawless Raider trophy or achievement, and I want to give a shout out to the people that run that community-driven page, and it is Jason Tay, Michael Johnson, and Carmine Melee. I don't know if that's correct, but thank you so much. Carmine is actually the guy who started it,
Okay.
and these other people are the guys who help run it. Thank you guys so much. And this week, it's just been really cool to see everybody really come together. It went from like 300 to 700 people.
What?
Since the last podcast. It
Holy
absolutely
cow.
exploded. So yeah, check it out. Look up Fire Team Chat on Facebook if you want to join the community-run Facebook page.
All right. So the first topic you and I are tackling this week is an interesting one because you and I have been arguing about this. I feel like since the day we pitched to each other
Yes.
that like we came back from Christmas break, myself and Alfredo sat down to talk about the idea of doing a Destiny-focused show. And one of the first arguments we had, and it just kept going, was the notion of matchmaking in
raids, yes.
Now,
we've argued about this in our fire teams on Destiny many, many times.
Yeah.
And I think
okay.
it 100% should have matchmaking. There's no excuse. There is no excuse that raids just don't have it. Nightfall should have it too, but like at least I can kind of understand that one. But raids, no, they should. It should be there as an option, is my argument. And you think otherwise?
I have for a very long time. So I will 100% begin my arguments with, I do, over time, since we started arguing about this back in January, it's now March, I wanted nothing to do with matchmaking in raids. And the reason I hung on to that belief is because I feel like the matchmaking, I feel like the raid is very tightly tuned around communication and around you being semi-comfortable with the people you're communicating with. Let me give you an example. I've had raids where I've played with you, where leadership was very clear who was in charge. I think you ran those raids for the most part. And everyone who's on the team needs to be listening and sort of reacting and working together.
Basically,
and listening to that leader. That leader voice is key. Every time I have had a raid where there wasn't strong leadership or people who broke team and didn't really pay attention to leadership, in a raid, the raid would fall apart. No matter how easy it should have been.
How skilled the players are.
Yeah. No matter, and including leveling for crying out loud. Like I've had raids where it just completely fell apart because there wasn't a key personality, a key person helping guide what's happening. Now, to me, that communication and the tight level of teamwork makes those raids feel like, well, I have to be semi-comfortable with who I'm talking to, meaning I'm either playing with friends or I'm playing with a friend of a friend who we could still keep it cordial. But when it is a complete stranger, and I've had instances where this happened, I want to say 7 times out of 10, I've had an awful experience.
Just like the person's a jerk or something?
Where the person was listening, where there was a lot of back and forth, not a lot of clear communication on what people were doing or how well they were doing it or who needed help. And the raid is such a tightly wound experience that the minute things aren't working right for a certain person, it can really fall apart. It's kind of like trying to cross the bridge in Crota. Like if someone doesn't know what they're doing on that bridge portion, for example,
it's frustrating.
It's very frustrating to do.
Understandable.
There are other portions of any raid that you can get through regardless of that. Gorgons is an example where if people aren't listening and aren't watching for the right, sort of direction, completely falls apart. It's really hard to do.
So that's why you think it shouldn't happen.
That's
my counterpoint to that. Oh, you're not done yet.
I will say this. I have come around to you to your point though that it should be an option, but I have very distinct views on what I think that option should be. So I'm going to let you continue. Why don't you push back?
Okay, well, there's two excellent examples of games that have sort of in-game matchmaking for raids, and that is Final Fantasy XIV and World of Warcraft.
Okay.
World of Warcraft has the option where you can get a group together and then kind of hop into a dumbed-down raid, where it's not as difficult, but you can kind of go in with a bunch of randoms. And then there is the harder one where you play with a bunch of people, up to 20-something people, and you go in and it's much more difficult. It's difficult based on how many people you have.
But a dumbed-down raid, like, this is my fear. The minute you make it a match-made thing, something that anyone can clear, I feel like something like that intense teamwork.
The rewards would obviously
take a dip.
The rewards are different though for the dumbed down raid versus the harder one. So you get lesser rewards for the dumbed down version in World of Warcraft, I am assuming. I don't play World of Warcraft, but our guy Eric does, and I asked him about their raids.
Sure. And I got a buddy.
Final Fantasy XIV also has matchmaking, and I've played that. I've gone through an instance, and it's fine. You just play with random. Somebody takes the leadership role because they're not hosting a game if they're not willing to take a leadership role, and then they organize a group, and then they go through it. There has to be a leader. You are right. There has to be somebody leading the group, and if that doesn't happen, then it's kind of a messy experience. But to not have it at all isn't really an acceptable answer to the problem.
Sure. I think that the reason I also get so tightly wound about this subject, especially, is because I feel that someone's first-time experience in the raid, positive or negative, will impact the way they feel about raiding in general. Where if someone gets tossed into the deep end, has people there. Let's take the typical match-made pickup group scenario in any competitive shooter, where there are some teams that roll really well because there are enough lone wolves who know what they're doing. There's some teams, objective-based games, for example, in most of my experience at least, in matchmaking settings, don't always work out very well because not everyone is really aware of what they're doing. They just want to play to play. That has been my experience in the past. So when I get very sort of protective of why I want the raid to stay as pure as it is, that's one of the reasons, because in most cases where I've seen anything semi-competitive with an objective, it falls apart most times. And I don't have fun. I always have to end up playing with, guess who? My friends, in order to really have a good time.
So
now let me rewind a little bit here.
So sorry, I have a question about that point there. Why would that make it so you can't play with your friends if that was there as an option?
No, but why would I want to suffer through playing?
You don't have to. You don't have to. You can play with your friends. But for all the people that want it, why is the answer no? We're not going to put it in the game. Why is that the answer?
I don't know what their reason for the answer being no, but I know that in my experience, that ability to communicate is so important. Like the need for communication in the raid is so important. It has probably been done, but I'd love to see a team tackle the raid and not say a word to each other. I don't know if it could be done. Like, it's really hard.
No, why would you do that? You would at least use your emotes to point or something.
Yeah, well, okay, so let's go back to your World of Warcraft example. So I was talking to a friend of mine who was heavy into WoW, and he said two things happened when WoW went, and someone write into Destiny@IGN.com if you have, either a similar example or a better example of this story. But a friend of mine pointed out to me that in World of Warcraft, two things happened after raids went match-made. One is that, to a degree, some of them got a little easier. That's right. There was sort of the dumbed-down version, and so you don't get as good reward. Fine, whatever. The other thing that happened was that this community sort of sprung up that was all about sort of teaching people who didn't know how to play the raid to play the raid. And
that sounds awesome.
To a degree with Destiny. It is happening to a degree with Destiny. So I will not shoot that down, and that's why I think the option is... That's why I've come closer to maybe this should be an option. But my key problem with matchmaking is, when should it be an option? I firmly believe, and you're going to hate me for this, but I firmly believe something like matchmaking in raids should be available after you've gone through the raid at least twice. I don't think it's something that should be available from the second the raid is up, because I think that the chances of you getting grouped with someone who doesn't know what they're doing. Let's take some scenarios.
So you're getting closer. You're getting closer to it's okay.
I am getting closer to it's okay. But let me give you the examples here. For example, Vault of Glass. Let's say right before Atheon, that's a problem. You're going to have to pull the audio from there. Okay. Take, for example, Atheon. Let's say you are right at the end of Atheon and someone just disconnects in the middle of a match-made raid. How do you select who gets tossed in? is that person okay with missing all of the chests that they are now missing out on?
Well, wait, why do they miss out on chests? Oh, if they come in on Atheon.
Like, when does matchmaking say, okay, and then if you're the person trying to get match made, do you get to pick where you get tossed in?
Well,
or
let's look.
You just sort of, like, the
let's
raid
look
is
at
so
what
unlike anything else out there. Like, I feel like this is a huge. I don't want to be an apologist, but I think these are considerations that are super important for it.
Let's look at the communities that have sprung up. The 100.io is a community where you get match made with like 100 other players that play at the same time you do, and you can go do raids. Or DestinyLFG.net, which is changing over to like LFG.Destiny.net or something like that. But anyway, they've built an excellent app that allows you to join with other players looking or that have the checkpoint that you want in any of the raids, and you can continue from that point.
Okay.
Bungie may not like that, but the community is building these tools.
The community is taking it on themselves, because I don't know if Bungie really figured it out, which is why they said no from the start. You have to have friends. I will say this: my first raid, when I really deep dove into Destiny this Christmas, like it was crazy. I was playing every day, and I said, okay, I'm gonna raid with someone. You and I hadn't been talking at that time. I think you were even in Canada. I don't even know for sure.
I was.
You were definitely on vacation.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure if I could rely on trying to put together a team with you, so I used LFG to play in a raid. I played Vault of Glass for the first time with a bunch of people from England, I think, from the UK. Everyone had access.
Were they cool?
It was probably the most awkward experience I've ever had raiding. We beat it.
Why is it awkward?
We beat it. Well, because there was a bunch of things to consider. First of all, it was my first time at that raid.
Yeah.
I got spawned in right at Atheon, did not know what I was doing, had to be explained what was going on. We died like 4 or 5 times because while people were explaining to me, other people were making mistakes. A lot of cheeky banter, which I'm just not. I don't know these guys, so I can't.
Talking about bangers and mash and
or
fish and chips
or something, like, you know, like just. It was friendly, but it was still,
they were from
it was
Europe,
still super silly to me. Like I couldn't connect with these people. Versus the time we played together, I had a great time. Like,
well, you play with a bunch of people we all knew, so.
Okay, but
I understand that.
Then becomes my point for why I have been so Mr. Anti-match-made raids. Well, it's because
you want the superior experience to be everybody's first experience with raids.
Yeah.
I understand that.
That's super important to you wanting to continue to raid. Now, I get the problem people have where they're like, well, I don't know anyone who's playing this game. Let me tell you something. The internet is full of people who want to be your friend. That's 100%
like the people on our Facebook page, apparently.
Or
because
the people on 100IO.
Yeah, since this last episode, like a bunch of people joined the Facebook page, and they're all playing Destiny together. Like there's 28s through 32s on there, and there's 32s that just want to shepherd people through.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. Destiny has one of the best online communities that I have ever encountered in a game, and it's awesome that is a thing.
It's an excellent community when they talk to each other.
Yes, when they talk to each other.
When they don't, it still just becomes. For example, how many strikes have you been on where the other one or both of them just run off?
I've been on like one strike when the other people actually use their mics. Yeah. Like one.
Okay,
so since they added it.
So imagine raids under that context. Imagine that happening. How do you even begin to understand what
you create a matchmaking system that requires communication? Like, do you have mics required for this group? If you join, you don't have a mic, the party leader boots that person.
But that's still.
Do you have a mic? I'm gonna give you a minute, dude. It takes a long time just to set it up with your friends.
It takes a long time just to coordinate everyone's schedule so they could do the raid too. Like I feel like this is still a catch-22. I hope in the future Bungie definitely figures out how to implement a system that can be fair. But I will stand by. I don't want to ever play a raid for the first time with randoms. It's just not fun in my experience. It isn't. I'm sure there are people who can write in, and you could write in at destiny.com.
No, leave a comment, actually. Leave a comment. Or what I actually need on destiny@ign.com is something else. So let's reserve it for that later.
Okay, so let's reserve it for that. But that's been my point, man. It's just I've done it that way. It was okay. I got something out of Atheon. I don't even remember what Atheon dropped. It was
probably
a
bike and a weapon.
Yeah, but it wasn't until I started playing it regularly with friends I was like, oh my god, this is the raid. This is what I want. This is so focused, so coordinated. So much hinges on teamwork, and I just didn't get that with random people. And I'm glad that there are communities that are existing out there to help folks through it. And good job to you, by the way, because you guys are amazing. But I just don't want that.
I want it desperately. I think it's a feature that should be in the game, at least for Destiny 2, if not before the end of Destiny 1's life cycle. I think it's something that should be an option in the game, and whether there's a prerequisite where you need to complete 2 raid matches or not, I don't care, but it should be a feature in the game.
Okay.
Like, I find it amazing that this game, or at least component, that you have to play with other people, you have to, doesn't have a way for you to play with other people online.
Is it that out of this world to expect you to have 5 friends? Is it that out of this world to expect you to have
not
5
me
friends
or you who can go to our Twitter accounts and just say, hey, I'm doing the raid. Anybody want to join up? But the average guy who maybe his friends don't have PS4 or Xbox One yet, who's just looking for people to join up.
The community has found ways around that. I will say this, though.
Yeah, they have. They created a matchmaking system outside of the game that you have to access. It's still matchmaking. It's just not offered by Bungie. It's offered by the fans.
All I'm going to say is the day this happens, right?
Yeah.
And it feels inevitable at this point. Matchmaking, I firmly believe it will come to raids, and it's going to become an option. I just don't want it to affect the quality of the raid. I want the raid to always be as hard as it can be, as special as it can be, as well thought out mechanically, thematically as it is. The last thing I ever want to see, I say this to you as I grab your shoulder, I never want to see raids transform into strikes, into the simple kill everything from beginning to end, no sort of teamwork, no sort of special mechanic. That,
you're saying it'll affect their design philosophy.
I worry that it could, and I don't want to see that.
Okay.
So choose or lose, ladies and gentlemen. Do you want match-made raids? Do you not want match-made raids? Is it inevitability? Is it an inevitability at this point? Leave a comment. Let us know what you think.
Yeah. If you've had an especially awful experience or an especially fantastic experience in a raid, you can email us at destiny@ign.com. But the thing I really need from people is we really want community challenges. I have like 300 emails to go through because everybody's still sending in their best and worst.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we did that. We did that. I can't respond to all 300. That's why I'm like, no, don't ask them to send in another thing. But
okay.
So yeah, destiny@ign.com. We'll read your absolute best and absolute worst raid experiences on the podcast. But what I really need is community challenges. We've been trying to implement IGN community challenges for a few weeks, and
what
so
did we do last week? I forget. I'm getting old.
it was like get through the lamp section without dying, and somebody tried it. I think his name was Brian. Tried it on the forums, and he almost got all the way through.
Almost pulled it off.
Yeah, close.
All right. Props to you, Brian.
We really have to move on.
All right, so we're moving on to this question comes from Austin,
Yeah.
and maybe you can help me set this up because I'm not entirely sure what he's asking here.
Okay, so he's asking about the Dark Below DLC.
Okay.
And he's saying, should players who only bought the base game ever get access to the Dark Below DLC? Or should they just have it already? Because right now, if the weekly strike is Omnigul, like it was last week, or a while ago, then they don't have access to do that strike. They just can't do it. They're locked out of it. You have to purchase the content to do it. So the question is, when should that just be made free or open to everybody? You paid $60 for a game. They're asking, I think it's $20
Still,
for both.
something like that.
For both. The DLC isn't cheap. And the Dark Below has been reviewed poorly by most outlets.
Yep.
You know. And there's actually another question there about Destiny's reviews. But should Bungie make this available for everybody? I think, I don't know. That's a tough question.
Well, why don't you lead off with an answer? It is $20 for a download code for the Dark Below.
It is.
For folks,
does that include House of Wolves?
Content, I don't think it does. I think it's just standalone. I'm looking at something from
GameStop?
Yeah, just expansion 1, the Dark Below, GameStop, $20. I think there was a season pass though that bundled them both together for a cheaper amount of money. Just putting that out there. But
$20 seems very expensive for the amount of content that you get. You get some new weapons. You get the raid. I love raids, but $20 seems a little bit steep for the amount
weapons,
of content.
Armor, gear to earn, light level cap raised to 32, and 5 additional bounty slots added. New cooperative.
Well, some of that stuff is just stuff that's in there anyway. You don't get 5 bounty slots if you get the Dark Below. That's just part of the game
New
now.
Hive story missions, which it was super short. And then Eris and her bounties, which, you know, and Crota's End. Let's not leave that one out. That's the centerpiece of it all.
So
Crota's End, which is a fun raid.
So I think someday, they should make it free, but not until after House of Wolves. Like, I don't think their price point was right. I think their price point's way off base. $20 is very expensive for the House of Wolves. I don't know how that got decided, or not House of Wolves. Sorry, the Dark Below.
Dark Below, yeah.
But the stuff you get in there is pretty fun. I think if they do that again with House of Wolves, and Luke Smith already said that it's not going to be like the Dark Below. They've kind of admitted that they made a mistake with the Dark Below. But if you launch a piece of DLC at another $20, you've now spent $100 on this game if you buy the packs individually. And I would be amazed if their player base retained at least the player base that only bought the base game. If House of Wolves really is that much better, like if it's fantastic, give away the Dark Below for free.
But doesn't that burn everyone who bought it? I mean, off the bat, just asking as
when was it launched? It was launched in November, December?
This was a December. I think this is early December thing. But let's focus on when it came out and more focus on how do you justify to the people who paid for this, who paid $20? Well,
so they're kind of in a catch-22.
They are, absolutely.
Damned if they do, damned if they don't.
Yep. Absolutely.
That is a really, really tough question, and Austin, like, I don't really know how to give you a straight answer. I don't think it should be $20. First of all, like, we scored it pretty low for those reasons. But should they just have access to the DLC? No, I mean, it wasn't pulled out of the game. Like, clearly they had to like build this after launch of the game or continue to craft it.
Yep.
I don't know. How do you feel? This is a tough question for me to answer.
No, it is.
And
I mean,
especially because we're post-launch.
Yeah.
It's out there now. You're right. If they made it free, the fans who bought it are going to feel burned.
That's a lot of people.
And they're going to revolt, basically. They can't. I don't think they can. Should they have made it accessible to the people, though? I don't know.
I mean, maybe making it free for everyone does mean more people get to experience it. I mean, anyone who's playing Destiny without it is to some degree. I know it's scored low, but anyone who's playing Destiny currently without that DLC, I think, is missing out because Crota's End is still a pretty amazing raid. It's not as good as Vault of Glass. I will 100% stand by that. Does that mean that raid only should justify a $20 price point? I don't know about that. Like, we're in such a weird place right now, too, in terms of what something should cost post-launch. Like, the notion of how much content justifies spending 20 real-world dollars, essentially. I will say that I think it's inevitable that Dark Below gets included along with maybe House of Wolves as
Comet.
Or Comet.
I think it'll be
one package that's going to cost like $60 or $70.
It's going to be like a Game of the Year edition in September or something where everything's there plus a few other things.
Yeah, I think that's inevitable.
That's what I think Comet is personally.
And by then, I think most of us will have moved on and won't feel quite as burned. But if tomorrow Bungie turned around and said Dark Below is this $20 thing that most of you paid for $20 for in December up until March is now $10. That to me feels a little more realistic than just them flat out saying, "Hey, this is free."
You know what they do? If you buy House of Wolves, one time only, you can get the Dark Below with it for an extra $5.
Yeah. And
so you pay $25 for the Dark Below or the House of Wolves. You also get Dark Below. That's not that bad of a deal. The people who bought it day one, they're early adopters. They're not going to feel that burned. It's a really good deal for people who bounced on the Dark Below. They get both pieces of content. There's tons for them to do now. House of Wolves better be awesome. I hope it's awesome.
Please be good.
Yeah.
Please be good. No, I mean, I agree with a lot of what you're saying so far. I just, in my mind, like, it's just really hard. And I know there are people on the internet who will sit down and sort of write all of this down and say, is this worth my $20? And you're right to do that. But I just feel like we're in this weird space where it's very hard to determine how much anything video game wise should cost because of the pricing that is all over the place. I will agree $20 was too much. I think that they were definitely asking
like $9.99 for this one.
For a little more than what they should have. And especially versus the amount of content that was reused, even if it was reused in some cool ways, it still wasn't something that a lot of people.
Most of the missions are in areas you just run through backwards.
And that's to some degree, when you look at the changes that happened then, right, where the economy around exotics was completely redone in a way that didn't need to happen, and that's what Luke was really sort of alluding to when he took to NeoGAF and basically said, hey, we're not making these mistakes again. You know, vendor gear invalidating what you got from Vault of Glass was a huge misstep.
Yeah.
He didn't say huge, but it was a misstep. Upgrading an exotic to reset its talents, that was a big misstep as
Honestly,
well.
I am sitting on 10 105,000 bounties that I'm going to turn in day one.
For House of Wolves.
Just in case House of Wolves does something crazy again where I get that first piece of armor, first weapon, I want to upgrade it immediately. So I'm going to do the Nightfall so I have my XP boost, turn in all those bounties, and whatever I get that first week, I want it maxed out. And I'll start stacking bounties and do it again the next week. Plus, I have 200 marks and I have 100 Crucible marks. I really hate Crucible.
You down with Crucible?
No, I play it once in a while, like very casually. Like this dude actually ended up in the game with me, and I was second place. Yeah. So I'm not that bad.
Okay.
Nice
work.
Anyway, I just don't like Crucible. So I have like 120 Crucible marks and 200 Vanguard marks, and I'm just going to sit on them, see what happens with House of Wolves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of people's approach with Destiny right now. Even some people listening to this podcast, I think, have stopped playing Destiny for now with the intent of, okay, House of Wolves has the chance to pull me back and keep me here for a while if it finds the right way to present the right amount of content and the right goods to chase after. You and I have talked about in this very show the notion that raids only have one set of gear. I think is per class is a mistake. I feel like there should be multiple sets of gear in some cases, especially if you're not going to offer additional raids as part of that package. Just go all out. Say, okay, this set of gear is tuned for this. This set of gear is tuned for that. You choose. There's more trophies for you to chase after that way. I feel like Destiny is a game about the carrot and the stick, and there's a lot of times people don't feel like they're getting carrots anymore, or they're chasing after a carrot that they're never going to have.
Yeah.
Like Ballerhorn.
I need Suros and Hawkmoon, and I didn't get it last week.
I got 2 Hawkmoons.
I did everything last week. I was getting a lot of exotics that I already had version 2 of, so I was pretty bummed.
Okay.
Well, we should move on to the final topic.
Okay, so the final topic, why don't you set this up as well? Because this one is kind of interesting.
So this one's I've seen a few articles claiming that Bungie's at war with their user base, and I think it's pretty off target. But you had some thoughts about where this is coming from.
For sure. So why don't you set up for folks what exactly is happening with some of these articles? What are you exactly pointing to?
So basically, they're saying that because this user, Mega Man EXE, was able to predict Xur's inventory, Bungie went ahead and changed their code so that it was more random. Or at least there's 2 versions of it. That's what Mega Man EXE is claiming. There's 2 versions of it now, one that's completely random and one that was kind of whatever the old one is. And I don't think that necessarily indicates that Bungie is at war with anybody. I think it's just them looking at their code being like, oh my God, this isn't random. Let's improve it. But how are they at war with their user base? Why would you want to punish them? It doesn't make any sense. Like, okay, they're not going to put Galahorn in their inventory again. Like, I get emails about this conspiracy theory that Bungie is purposefully not selling Galahorn again, and I deserve Galahorn, and I put in 900 hours and I didn't get Galahorn. Bungie, I hate you. And I'm like, dude, I don't think they're like signaling you out so that you keep playing. You might have an addictive personality that doesn't like make you put on the brakes.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to leave before I answer your question though about like what does it mean, to put in a title, Bungie's at war. Yeah. I do want to preface this with that we are in the business of writing about sort of what's happening in certain games. And Destiny is a game that is always changing. And to some degree, a lot of the changes in that game have been brought about by
the community,
by what people have discovered as either, some of it unacceptable and some of it, just ways around certain things in that game. Maybe at war is a little too much, but at the end of the day, I don't think the algorithm or whatever got changed for Xur would have been changed had this user not been able to accurately predict week by week what the inventory was going to be.
So here's how all the inventories work, right?
Okay.
Because I've sat around for Eris and stuff like that.
Got it.
At midnight or 1 o'clock or whatever the time is now, the inventory changes and it updates.
Okay.
So at that point, Mega Man EXE is able to say, okay, this week it's going to be this. Because it refreshes and he's able to pull it from the netcode to know what Xur is going to have when he reappears in the tower, wherever he reappears.
Okay.
And that's fine. But Bungie going in and saying, oh, yeah, I don't really like how that works. It should be random. We don't want this guy predicting because for me, that sucked. I would know what would happen on Tuesday as opposed to on Friday. I mean, it made my Fridays a lot more open. But but I want to be surprised. I like that surprise. I like coming back and be like, ooh, what's he got? Oh, yeah, he has that thing that I want.
Okay.
You know, and it was a little weird.
I do think, though, that part of that, I don't know. I think that to a degree, Destiny is, and you know what? Maybe we should reach out to some guests who work on a live game. Talk to like the Blizzards of the world. Because the thing is, you can't predict what players are going to do. You can make a game for a certain type. You can make a certain genre game. You can put all this time in story. You can put all this time in making these spaces. But at the end of the day, you can't patch what players do.
True.
You can't predict the walls they're going to try and break down and the things they're going to try and do from it. I don't think it's necessarily bad to call attention to the fact that Bungie has made changes to Destiny with the result of trying to keep some of the mystery and preserve some of the sort of the game that they want it to be. And I mean, look at the changes, right? I mean, you've seen changes in, they patched the loot cave. They've it took forever, but heavy ammo finally got fixed. There were changes constantly being pushed out to the raids because when they first launched, when Vault of Glass first
everybody
launched,
just cheesed them.
Yeah, everyone just cheesed them. Same thing with Crota when it launched. There was Warlock res like cheeses and things like that on the bridge. You didn't even have to do the bridge in order to be able to pass that section. But
those changes I kind of understand.
I don't think it indicates war. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
You think that's inflammatory. I completely can side with you on that. But no one can deny that Destiny is an ever-evolving thing, and that at the end of the day, Bungie is going to do everything that they can to preserve that and to make sure that players are still having what they hope is a good time. Maybe they're spending too much time on that and less on getting other things
like
done.
heavy ammo when that was the thing.
Yeah, as a result.
That's
but it is
the big
a
complaint.
live game, so it's hard to push changes to it.
And they make it sound like it's like 3 dudes in a room. It's like a team of 200 people. They're all working on different things. It's not like the whole team stops and fixes the raid bugs.
Yep. Yeah, but I agree with you that it's not really so much war as it is just trying to make sure that everyone who's playing Destiny is getting the best out of it that they can, at least until House of Wolves comes out. And we're back to that point. House of Wolves, do it, please be good.
Yeah.
Just hang on. I need a minute. I need a moment. Drop a date. When is this coming out?
Oh,
Are we on House of Wolves watch?
April, May, or June. So yeah, House of Wolves watch.
Wolves watch.
All right. That's funny. Oh God, I'm gonna say May 20 something, like May 23rd, like a Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, you're going down to the date. You're not even just giving a month.
Yeah.
All right.
What do you got?
I don't have anything.
They have April, May, and June. They're not going to launch in June. No way they launch end of June.
Why?
Maybe beginning of June, like E3 is in June, right?
I mean, you show it at E3.
E3 is in June, though. They're not going to like do E3 like House of Wolves launched today.
No,
that seems.
But it could be an.
They get like no coverage. They would be buried in the coverage.
That's not true. At E3, you'd get plenty of coverage.
Maybe if it was playable, but what are you going to play? Like one of their strikes? People want to see, more than that.
No, I agree.
Yeah, they want to see the raid.
Well, it's not April. As sad as that. I mean, I don't think it's April. If it's April, we would have heard about it by now.
Late May. They want to get that out.
Can I ask you a question?
Before E3, I think.
Dark Below. When did you see or? You were involved with some pre-release coverage on Destiny. When did you get to touch /see/ did you get to go near Dark Below before it came out?
When it came out?
That was it?
Yeah.
That was it?
I didn't get any advanced coverage. Nobody did. Or we didn't.
Yeah.
I think Game Informer had an exclusive, but that was all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go with May. I don't think it slips past May. I think if it slips past May, I am copying you a little bit. Well, no, because I think you could get coverage out of it at E3 for sure. It can show up at Sony's press conference and be a cool thing. Dark Below. Yeah. I mean, House of Wolves.
The week before E3 is rumor week. All the rumors about what's going to be at E3. The week of E3 is crazy news for like the first 3 days, and then it's kind of So maybe end of June could be feasible, like after E3, after it's kind of calmed
House
down.
Of Wolves is a May
but
thing,
I really think it's going to be like that third week in May.
But if House of Wolves is a May thing, and it could well be, let's say first week of May is House of Wolves.
Yeah.
Does that mean June is Talk About Comet at E3?
Nah.
No?
They're holding Comet for later in the year.
Okay. Write in. Tell us what you think.
There's another 300 emails. Thanks, Jose.
You're welcome. And I think we're out of time.
We are.
We are. All right. Well, thank you for listening to Fireteam Chat, IGN's Destiny show. We will be back with a regular guest, hopefully, next week, on top of Fran Mirabella, who unfortunately could not be a part of the show this week. He is away on family business. But that said,
this is a heated episode. It was very serious.
A little bit. Yeah, it is. And I still don't think matchmaking should be in Wraith.
It should be.
I'm kidding. You can leave us feedback at iTunes, or you can head on over to IGN where we have a bunch of videos. Destin handles every week sort of a video tailored around what they're selling. On top
I have
a
community challenge.
What is the challenge?
Artwork. Send in artwork.
What artwork?
Just something you drew from Destiny. It can be bad. It can be good. Maybe we could share it. I think that'd be cool.
I
love artwork. Destiny@IGN.com.
Okay, you heard it.
Send something you drew.
Send something you drew. Headline: This is for Destin. Subject line: This is a picture for Destin.
Pics. Oh God.
Don't do
no.
I don't know what you're asking for here, but I think you're going to be the only man on this show the way this is going. Don't do it. All right, but then again, thank you very much for listening. Again, head on over to iTunes, leave us feedback. There's a Facebook community you should absolutely join, especially if you're trying to get Flawless Raider. And on top of that, Destin is a very active member in the Destiny community, so you can definitely find him. I won't be until I move, but I will be moving soon. And that's it, Guardians. Thanks again for listening, and we will be back next week with more Fireteam Chat.
Guardians out. I'm going to keep doing it.